Hey there, my name is Steph, and I'm the founder and executive director of Body Banter, which is a local charity in Hong Kong that empowers young people in conversations about body image and mental health. Yeah, thanks so much for sharing about the stress you experience when there is an overwhelming amount of homework or exams piling up. I can completely relate to that. I'm also currently in my PhD in the final year of my doctoral degree. And so I can absolutely relate to the fact that certain amounts of homework and tasks related to your academics can feel overwhelming and like there isn't enough time to finish all of it. So I think I'm going to form my response in two separate parts. The first one is how to get yourself motivated again when you start to feel like your motivation is lagging a little bit. And to that, I usually try to do a task that feels relatively easy and that I can finish quickly. So for example, responding to an email. And I try to do that task just to get that sense of accomplishment in my head. And then afterwards, I feel a little bit more motivated to continue into progressively more difficult tasks. And secondly, when you're looking at a large amount of tasks that you have to complete and it starts to feel overwhelming, what I like to do is I like to work according to what is called the Pomodoro method. And this is a way of trying to focus and keep the work block that you're currently engaging in. So whatever your task is, just commit to 25 minutes of work. Just to put your mind to doing 25 minutes of focused, undistracted work, and then remember that you're going to have 5 minutes of rest after the end of that 25 minutes. And if 25 minutes feels too daunting, just start with 5 minutes. Start with 1 minute. Just focus for that dedicated amount of time, and you'll find that you start to feel your mind sharpen and feel motivated to complete the task within that dedicated time that you've set out. But yeah, good luck. And I know that it's not an easy thing to put your mind to something that feels difficult or when you have so many tasks on your plate. So wishing you all the best. I think that oftentimes, especially as a kid growing up in Hong Kong, it's easy to feel like grades are defining of your self-worth, and that if you don't get a certain grade, perhaps that is expected of you from yourself or your peers or your teachers or your parents, that it's the end of the world. And without minimizing the stress that this kind of pressure brings, I just wanted to remind you that grades don't define you, and that, sometimes I look back at my high school self and I just think about how all-consuming grades seemed and how all-consuming academic pressures and homework and getting ideal outcomes in our academics, how all-consuming it feels for us in the moment. But then think about how you might look back at a childhood experience. For example, when you were a kid, you might have put great importance into, let's say, if someone took your toy or your toy car or your toy Barbie or whatever your favorite stuffed animal was. And at the time, it might have seemed like a very big deal. But then when you look back again, it kind of becomes an interesting memory, something that you've learned from, something that you've grown from. And I think that, it comes into two parts. The first is to validate the fact that you feel really stressed about the grades that you might be getting or not getting. Validate that. Acknowledge that this is a stressor that's bothering you a lot. And also think about yourself in the distance, in the future. What might that future version of yourself have experienced that could give you wisdom into the moment that you're experiencing now? Perhaps the exam pressures feel a little smaller when you think about yourself in the future, all the other things that make up the colorful aspects of your life. It's really tough to see your friend being ostracized or bullied at school. And I remember that when I was younger, I I was personally, I personally experienced bullying. I was once the bully, and I've watched my friends being bullied. So I know that this particular experience can be, I can see this particular experience from different angles. But I think just speaking to what you can do when your friend is being ostracized or being bullied, the first is actually just to do your best to be a good friend to this person without overstretching your own limits. I wanted to emphasize that supporting someone else who's in distress or who's struggling can be very draining for yourself as well. So, first and foremost, I think even as you support your friend, show them your care and support and remind them that they're loved and that you want them around, that you want them to engage in the social activities that you plan. As you do that, also make sure that you're taking care of yourself. And if you feel like it's getting a bit too heavy for you, that perhaps if this friend is disclosing certain experiences that you don't feel like you can handle on your own, make sure that you reach out to either other friends for support, maybe family members, trusted teachers, and mental health professionals at your school, so that your friend can actually be comprehensively supported. I think this is a difficult one for many young people, especially if you've grown up in Hong Kong. I remember that I struggled a lot with my mental health in my final years of high school, particularly. And I similarly felt that it was difficult to express my emotions because growing up, I rarely had any kinds of conversations about my emotions, even though I grew up in a really caring family. First of all, just wanted to say that it's very understandable why you might feel uncomfortable expressing your emotions if you've grown up in Hong Kong, or if you've grown up in a particular context that makes it feel embarrassing or shameful to express your emotions openly. So my tip, and something that I've personally done in my life, is actually to start exploring other people's stories. And you can do this through reading books about other people's experiences with mental health struggles. There are some great ones out there. I also recently wrote a book that's called Big Bites Break Boundaries, and it's about my own experiences with struggling with an eating disorder in my teens. So books, YouTube videos, those are a little tricky just because sometimes, people might share information that could be triggering for you. But I've found personally that listening to other people's stories and reading other people's stories gave me some ideas for how I could start expressing myself as well. Another thing about hearing other people's stories is that it can help you feel less alone and feel less embarrassed to share experiences that you might have previously felt only affected you. But as you read more stories, you hear more stories, you start to realize that that's not the case, and that can be something that can be very comforting as well. I think comparison is such a natural human tendency, and in some cases it can be a positive thing. It can be a very positive thing to say, oh, actually, let's say this particular person I admire has done this particular thing, and I really want to work towards that, to strive towards that. So I think, first of all, to think about comparison, it's not always a negative thing, but of course, I think in the Hong Kong context, especially where there's a lot of competition, and comparison can become something that is very psychologically discouraging. It can make you feel really bad about yourself because you feel like you're not living up to certain expectations or certain standards that other people are able to live up to. The first thing I try to do is to acknowledge and emphasize to myself what my particular unique I would say talents, but also just contributions are. And particularly what I try to do is to bring out contributions that might be, kind of a little bit silly, if I may put it that way. So I might say, my giggles make other people laugh as well. It's just something that's not really an outcome or goal-oriented contribution, but it's just something that I uniquely bring to the table, that uniquely adds to the lives of people I care about. It's fun to do something for myself, to remind myself that I'm a lot more than just these societal expectations, that I give back to my communities in ways that are diverse and colorful. Yeah, social media can be a positive as well as negative place to be. And again, just speaking about comparison, it's easy to look at someone else's feed or what they're posting and assume that this is their entire life. But as I like to say, social media is really just the highlight reel of someone else's life. And I think many people would agree with that sentiment, which is that you only post things that you're proud of or excited about on social media. And just think about your own behaviors around social media. I would assume that most people only post the highlights of their lives. And so when you look at other people's feeds, try to keep that in awareness as well. This is by no means a full holistic capture of their experiences and their life. And so first of all, keeping that in awareness can be really helpful when you find yourself comparing yourself to others on social media. And another thing is that try to remember that you are in control of your social media feed. You don't have to follow people that make you feel bad about yourself. Controversial opinion is that you can even unfollow friends or close others whose feed make you not feel so great about yourself. Your social media feed is really yours, and you can curate it just to include cute puppies and kittens if you like. So try to remember that, and remember that social media doesn't control you. Thanks for sharing about some challenges you might be facing with your parents. And I think this is a tricky one because at the same time as we know that our parents care about us, I think that a natural process of growing up and becoming someone with your own values and interests and passions is starting to understand that just like your other friends, other people in the world, your parents and you may not always see eye to eye. And that as you grow up, it's often an exploration of how you can communicate to your parents as individuals rather than authority figures. And I think that an important part of communicating with your parents when there is misunderstanding is actually expressing your own values and interests and your own thoughts in an honest way so that you can start to share with your parents honestly this person that you are becoming. Not just a child of your parent, but someone who is becoming a version of themselves that you can be proud of, and hopefully your parents can start to see in a new light, with pride as well. I think with breakups with partners, this can be a time where first of all, you start to question whether you're lovable. You start to question things about your own sense of self-worth, and also your relationship with others in the world. So I think that, first of all, it's kind of helpful to be aware of the fact that the breakup in itself, yes, it was a difficult situation because of this person that you cared a lot about, and they are now no longer that significant part of your life. But at the same time, it symbolizes a lot more. It challenges your sense of self-worth and your understanding of your relationships with others. And I think something that really encouraged me in the outset of breakups was really to understand that when you are experiencing a breakup, this is actually a time for you to explore other facets of your life that perhaps you might not have had so much time for before. So for example, you might have previously not had time for hobbies that let's say your partner wasn't so interested in those hobbies and you just didn't have time to explore them because of that. this is your time. And perhaps you can explore new hobbies, you can explore new interests, you can spend time on things that you previously hadn't had time for. It's a different chapter. It's a different season to invest in yourself, so that when the next person comes along, you are able to be in a partnership as your full and a different chapter of yourself as well. So from what it sounds like, you have a different idea of what your future would be like, and it contrasts with what your parents have planned for you. And I think this can be really tough because a lot of times we can acknowledge that our parents have put good intentions into how they've structured our life plan. And while we can acknowledge that, we also have a separate version of our life story that we want to write. And acknowledging and following this different version of our life story can be difficult, especially in cultural contexts like Hong Kong, where a lot of times our parents do control a lot of facets of our everyday lives and the ways that we carry out our everyday activities. So from here, I think the first step is actually to try your best as you can to communicate your sentiments to your parents. Tell them why this might not be the path that you're envisioning, and explain in a way from, an adult to adult way, not necessarily from a child to a parent way. Communicate clearly as to why this is something that doesn't align with your values and expectations for your life journey, and explain this in a clear and open way with your parents. I think that sometimes there might still be resistance from your parents, perhaps that they've planned this kind of this future for you already. And in these cases, I do find that it's helpful to have another advocate for you. Perhaps it's a teacher or a sibling who knows why this might not be aligned with your expectations for yourself. So maybe they can be involved in the conversation to help emphasize your points and communicate more clearly from another perspective that supports your own, and communicate that to your parents as well. Thanks for sharing that. I think that feeling like a failure, or for some people, it's feeling like an imposter or a fake in the kinds of roles that they're engaged in, is extremely normal. And even people that you think are, supposedly doing very well for themselves or seem to have it all, on social media or even in conversations with them, they seem to be perfect. These people struggle with feeling like failures and imposters as well. And I think that, first of all, just to say that while the feeling of feeling like a failure can be very psychologically heavy and difficult, it's also, if you flip it on its head, it can actually be, if you frame it in a little bit more of a positive way, it can be a place for you to explore aspects of this role, or the kinds of expectations that you have for yourself, to build your goals, to build how you want to strive for your goals, or expectations for what you can achieve. Thanks for sharing that. I think that it can be really tough when the things that you are envisioning for yourself, and the job, for example, in this case, it doesn't align with what your parents expect for you. The first is that I think besides your academic endeavors and your academic life, for example, if let's say your parents are emphasizing that you should be a doctor, and you are actually you're actually pursuing or stuck in an academic career that is bringing you on track to be a doctor, that doesn't mean that you can't also pursue extracurricular activities that still nurture your personal passions. So I've had friends who pursued careers that they are not extremely excited about because because of parental pressure. So one of my friends pursued law because of their parents' pressure, and that was not their first choice in their career. But they also had extracurricular activities in music and drama, and actually excels in it, takes up a lot of their extracurricular time, and they find it very fulfilling to have both these aspects of their lives. So I think in the scenario where it might be difficult to change your parents' mind, and perhaps there's part of you that also feels obligated to live up to those expectations or align with those expectations, don't necessarily think that that excludes the possibility of doing other things to nurture your own interests as well. Alternatively, if your parents are open to it and are able to keep an open ear to the conversation about your own ideals and expectations for your life, I think it's very healthy to have a continued conversation about, saying to your parents, thank you for just sharing your passions with me. And growing up, I know that you've nurtured a lot of my interests in, let's say, the medical field. You've paved my path so I could pursue this career. But this is my chapter in life where I want to diverge from those kinds of paths that you've built for me. And this is something I hope we can talk about. I just wanted to say to you, if you are a young person who's going through a tough time right now, first of all, just know that even if you feel alone in this moment, you really aren't. I remember being a young person going through one of the most isolating times and thinking that no one could ever understand what I was going through. But as I started to hear other people's experiences, hopefully as you listen to some of the things I've shared today, there are strands of every person's story that can resonate with you. And who's to say that, one day if you decide to also share your story, whether it's in your smaller social circles or in a wider context, like I'm doing, it's something that can really bring people together to remind other people that, in their loneliest moments, they really aren't alone. So I think just to send all of you a lot of love to help you see that all of these experiences you're having will eventually be part of a broader life story that will become funny, interesting, a learning moment for you, and you'll flip back to this chapter in your life story and feel encouraged by it. I guarantee that. And thanks so much for being here and hearing my stories today. And if you feel like you'd really benefit from speaking to a mental health professional and getting more support, you can call 2382-0000, which is the hotline for SPS. All right, all the best, sending lots of love.